I'm going to ask you to be a little vulnerable with me this morning. I want you to think for a moment, whether it was in the past day or week, month, or even years, if there's something when you look back on your life that you wish you had done differently, then I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. Now, raise your hand if you wouldn't change a thing. Ooh. A few brave ones. So there was a recent survey in which 4,489 people were asked that first question. Do you wish you could go back and change something? Change your words or your actions? Something to this day bothers you. And I have to say, in that survey, 82% agreed and said yes. Because regret, that's what it is. A decision in the past that offers some kind of discomfort or disappointment. I dare say regret is occasionally part of everyday life. So just think to yourself for a moment, what is it that you regret? Perhaps it's a financial decision, maybe something to do with our health. Perhaps you regret the ways that you treated others or even the ways you've treated yourself. But the regrets I hear most often, Rabbi, I wish I didn't care so much about what others think. Rabbi, I regret living so much of my life in fear. And maybe this one won't surprise you, but the answer that I received the most, Rabbi, I regret not expressing or showing love to the people I care most about. I could have, I should have, I wish. I think we can label regret as the 11th plague. Because not to diminish their wrath, but the other plagues, they come and then they go. A beginning and ending, but regret looms. Regret lingers. And I think most often, regret overstays its welcome. Just look at the Parsha this morning, right at the beginning verses. Listen to what the Torah says. Now when Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, although it was near. For God said, the people may have a change of heart, and when they see war, they may return to Egypt. So I think what the Torah is indicating is that God didn't use Waze or Google Maps to get to the Sea of Reeds. After leaving Egypt, they went the long way. And what Rashi explains is after leaving Egypt, the children of Israel, we know they are incredibly frightened. They would be further, incredibly more scared of the war that they might see with the Philistines. And what will they do? They'll sprint back to Egypt. So it's hard to imagine God this way, but God is nervous. God is worried that the children of Israel will regret their decision. It's hard to believe, but even go back to the chains of slavery. So God tries to distract the Israelites from their pervasive thoughts by physically taking them in a different direction. But it doesn't work. Because as we see later in the Torah, and we know from personal life examples, when we regret something, these kinds of thoughts always catch up. Because you know, as I do, the stories of the Israelites in the wilderness, they complain about everything. They complain about the lack of water. They complain about the food choice. Okay, it's not 5-star accommodations in the wilderness. But their answer is always the same. We should have never left. Life was so much better in Egypt. Bnei Israel is incapable of escaping the thoughts that continue to plague them. Instead of running from the should-haves, instead of hiding from the wishes of the past. Perhaps this morning we can explore a different approach. Daniel Pink, author of the book, The Power of Regret, How Looking Back Moves Us Forward. He writes the following: regret is not dangerous or abnormal, a deviation from a steady path to happiness. Regret is healthy and universal, an integral part of being a human being. Regret is valuable. It clarifies, it instructs. Done right, it needn't drag us down, it can lift us up. Summarizing his premise, regret makes us human, regret makes us better. Meaning we get to choose how to use our deepest disappointments. Will regret cement us in a way that isn't helpful to ourselves or others, or will we choose to use regret to fuel and propel our future choices? The author Daniel Pink encourages us to use yesterday as a mobilization for tomorrow. So if we spent parts of our lives wishing that we took greater chances, then guess what? We have today. Today, be bold. If we look back at a fractured or unrealized relationship, then today, reach out. If we hold frustration because in the past we were silenced, then today choose to speak out. Because regret need not to be seen as mistakes, but regret can be placed in the language of repair and the language of growth. We often speak about tshuva, about repentance during the high holy days, but tshuva, repentance, is part of our everyday life, our everyday being. And right within that word is this idea of return. Maimonides explains that a return to oneself, a return to our core, that only occurs when we take a few moments to admit our mistakes, to take ownership of the past, and when faced with similar choices, react differently. And so I think the first step this morning is knowing that making a mistake, living with regret, it's not something that should prevent the next part of our lives from unfolding. Rather, regret can be seen as power, the spirit that pushes our lives forward. There's a story that's told by the Maggid of Dubno, and I wanted to share the parable with you this morning. What he says is there was once a king who owned so many beautiful possessions. He had cloth tapestries, he had piles of gold, but his favorite possession of all was a diamond, a flawless diamond. And one day he went to go look at his diamond, and he discovered in horror that in looking at his flawless diamond, in the middle of the stone was a jagged scratch. He couldn't believe it. This perfect piece he felt was ruined. And so immediately he sent for all of the stonecutters in the land to come to see if they could inspect the diamond and fix the stone. One by one, each came and they would shake their heads and say, "I'm so sorry, but the scratch is just too deep." But finally, one diamond carver came forward, and he looked down at the diamond and he smiled and looked back up at the king and said, "I know exactly how to fix this." Day after day, night after night, he brought his tools to repair the diamond, and finally he was finished. "Here it is, Your Majesty." And with a flourish, he uncovered the diamond, and the king gasped at what he saw. Because where there was once a scratch, where there was once a deep flaw, now was carved a beautiful rose. Unable to remove the scratch from the diamond, the carver decided to transform the scratch into something glorious, the stem of a precious flower, a rose. And when the king would gaze upon his diamond, upon his rose, he knew that even out of hardship, even out of something seemingly scratched, life can be filled with beauty. Life can be filled with joy, and life can be filled with love. The scratches, the mistakes, the regrets, they're never forgotten. They're there. But we can hold them in a way that will transform our lives so that we see today as better than yesterday, so that we see tomorrow as better than today. The great Rabbi Harold Schulweis used to share the following poem. It's never too late to change my mind, my direction, to say no to the past and yes to the future, to offer remorse for regrets, to ask and give forgiveness. It's never too late to feel again, to love again, to hope again. Because remember what the Midrash teaches us. Behind every blade of grass is an angel whispering, grow. Human beings are a compilation of regrets, accomplishments, disappointments, and so many moments of joy and so many moments of resilience. But just like that blade of grass, there's an angel that sits right behind us, whispering in our ear. Right now, they are asking each and every one of us, honor your past, but reach towards the future. Don't forget to grow. Shabbat Shalom.